So in this video, we'll be looking at the lymphatic organs, the pieces and parts of the lymphatic system. So let's get going. And we'll start by talking about lymph nodes. And if you are looking along in the book, page 621, figure 16.9 has a picture of a lymph node. I say that they're small, but when you look at them, they're not that, about an inch in length. Kind of bean-shaped, and they're covered by a capsule. When you see this term capsule, what we're talking about is a covering of fibrous connective tissue that surrounds and kind of holds in all of the tissues of a lymph node. And they're found in clusters or chains in the paths of the larger lymphatic vessels. And so figure for the 16, must be 16.8, something like that. That is not what I was trying to say. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why that's in there. Ignore that. But if you look at, here we are, 16.4. That's where I went wrong. 16.4 shows an image where some of the larger lymphatic or lymph node clusters are found. And they function to filter out potentially harmful particles from the lymph. And while they're doing that, they perform what's called immune surveillance. And so they monitor the lymph for any antigens that are not part of the body. So those would be the non-self antigens. And these are the antigens you would find on bacteria or viruses, on the toxins that bacteria produce, or other particles that somehow make their way into the body. So those are the non-self antigens. And this immune surveillance is all about looking for, and if they find something that is non-self during this, then they can mount an immune response. So that's what immune surveillance means. So there are, let's see, so if we were to draw a lymph node, so they're kind of bean-shaped, what we'd see is that there are multiple vessels that bring lymph into a lymph node, but those are the afferent vessels. The efferent vessel is the vessel that leaves the lymph node. It's always found in this region here called the hilum. And because there's more fluid coming in than is allowed out, the effect is that it really slows the flow of lymph as it's passing through that lymph node. And that slows it down, gives it enough time for all of the cells that are found in there, the immune system cells that are found inside the lymph node, gives them a chance to interact with anything that's there in the fluid. So the lymph moves onward, it travels out the efferent lymphatic vessel, and it passes on through more lymph nodes and eventually makes its way, as we said before in the previous video, into the venous circulation. Now inside the lymph node, the lymph circulates among what are called lymph nodules. So the nodules are clusters of lymphatic tissue that you find inside of the node. And the fluid circulates in the lymph sinuses. Those are the spaces around the lymph nodules, and gives a lot of time for the fluids and any particles in there to interact. These lymph nodules are composed of masses of macrophages and lymphocytes. So we have T and B cells found here in these lymph nodules. And I know we haven't talked about what those are yet. We'll get there. But T cells, that's one type of lymphocyte. B cells are another type of lymphocyte. And then, of course, the macrophages are the monocytes that are all grown up and now work in the tissue fluids of the body, eating up things that don't belong there. And so as the lymph passes through these chains of, or the clusters of lymph nodules that are all kind of chained together, the the macrophages are capable of removing more than 99% of the antigens in the lymph. And as those antigens are removed, then the T cells and B cells may be stimulated and an immune response can be initiated. So we find lymph nodules, again, these are the masses of macrophages and of lymphocytes. They're found in other portions of the body as well. They're all found in what are termed the MALT. That's the mucosa-associated lymphoid tissues. So MALT includes the tonsils. These are 5 large lymph nodules that line the pharynx. So there's 4 that are down in the pharynx itself, 2 on each side, and then 1 that is up in the nasopharynx area. As you're breathing in, the air is going to pass across that tonsil. There's the Peyer's patches. Peyer's patches are lymph nodules that are associated with the small intestine. There's the appendix, which is lined with lymph nodules, and then sprinkled among the mucosa of other parts of the digestive system, the respiratory system, the genital systems, and the urinary tracts are also patches of lymph nodule tissue. So notice where they're all located. The tonsils, that's there at the opening as you're eating food or as you're breathing air in. The Peyer's patches around the intestine, being able to monitor any antigens that might appear in the food. The appendix also is monitoring food as and the appendix is found there at the junction of the small intestine and the large intestine. And then, of course, the openings to the from out to the external environment associated with digestive, respiratory, reproductive, and urinary tracts are all places where we can be invaded. Those mucosa are sensitive to being invaded by non-self bacteria, things like that. So we have at all of these entry points into the body, we've got lymph nodules that are there to monitor, to remove things that don't belong, and to set up an immune response if invasion occurs. The thymus is also a lymphatic organ. It's found in the mediastinum, just posterior to the sternum, kind of in the same area where the trachea is headed down toward the lungs. And it is the location where the T cells mature. Now, T cells are they are produced in the red bone marrow, but they are then relatively early in their development. They are released into the circulatory system, and they make their way to the thymus. And the thymus secretes hormones called thymosins that are responsible for cueing the T cells to mature in the proper ways. And once the T cells are mature, then they will leave the thymus and circulate in the blood or take up residence somewhere in the organs. So thymus is very important because that's where the early training for T cells occurs. With age, though, the thymus tissue shrinks and it's replaced with adipose and connective tissue, so that by the time a person reaches about 70 years of age, it is only 1/10 the size that it was in the early teen years. So it gets smaller and smaller as we age, and that's associated with reduced ability to defend if new antigens enter the body, so if bacteria that the body has not been exposed to before, then with less thymus tissue training the T cells, then there's a greater risk of not being ready or able to defend against bacterial or other kind of viral invasions. Okay. The spleen is the largest of the lymphatic organs. It's found on the left side of the body, below the diaphragm, and sort of tucked behind the stomach. And it functions similar to the lymph nodes, but rather than filtering blood, rather than filtering lymph, it filters blood instead. And so inside the spleen we see masses of lymphatic tissue, and the blood circulates around these masses. The macrophages there can remove abnormal blood cells and any foreign material that doesn't belong, and lymphocytes that are residential there in the spleen can initiate an immune response if they encounter something that isn't part of the body. The spleen also is a storage place for iron, so as the macrophages are recycling red blood cells, then we do some storage of the iron there, and of course, as we learned in the chapter on blood, the spleen will also deliver or send extra iron out and send it off to the liver as well. So, but two big sites of iron storage are the spleen and the liver. All right, let's see what's next. Well, there we are. That's everything that I've got to say about the lymphatic organs. So from here, we're going to move on to discuss body defense mechanisms. That will be the next video.